Well, who knew that today it would be NFL football at the center of a major, major controversy involving Donald Trump? And I guess this sort of started to blow up a few days ago when Donald Trump called NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick a son of a bitch because he has been peacefully protesting by not standing during the national anthem, which is played before NFL football games. And there's just so much wrong with every aspect of how this has absolutely exploded. And even before this specific kneeling at the anthem thing became an issue, there have been debates about free speech that have become incredibly polarized and really pretty unhinged in the US. And there's a few reasons why that's been going on. Number one, and we've talked about this, is the major confusion around what the First Amendment actually means. Usually, the First Amendment is not at all a factor in the conversations people have about free speech. And for more about that specifically, you can check out my interview with attorney Burt Newborn, who's an expert on the First Amendment. That's on YouTube and in the archives for our members. Even when we can get past the issue of the First Amendment, there is still confusion from people about the right to speak whenever you want and wherever you want versus being, quote, censored. Now, as an example of where people don't understand that, just because you have a particular college that sometimes has speakers doesn't mean that they have to have you as a speaker to avoid being the practicers of censorship or violations of free speech. No one has a right to speak at any college that they want to. And even when we can get past that confusion, there's still a total misunderstanding of the reality that free speech is not freedom from the consequences of that speech. You might be able to say whatever you want, but there can be consequences to doing so, and that's okay also. Now, shockingly, the Colin Kaepernick thing has blown up despite not really being controversial at all. I mean, in the United States, there's nothing legally wrong with not standing during the national anthem. There's nothing morally wrong with it either, as that is sort of the prototypical nonviolent protest type that I thought our country was founded upon. And one argument is, well, Colin Kaepernick is being disrespectful to the military members who fight for our flag. No, they fight for us to have a country where people can express opinions, like Kaepernick is doing by kneeling during the national anthem. And the height of hypocrisy is the people who complain about oppressive political correctness, and then they say Kaepernick should be fired for kneeling during the anthem because that's wrong. Demanding someone stand during the anthem is the same type of heavy-handed, normative political correctness that the same people claim to oppose. So anyway, Trump is full in with this nonsense, gave a speech in Alabama, and he went off topic into a rant about the NFL and referred to players who kneel during the anthem as sons of bitches. Take a look at this.
I and everyone in this arena tonight are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired.
Yeah. Now, remember that, according to Trump, there were fine people on both sides of the neo-Nazi rally, yet NFL players who kneel as a sign of activism are sons of bitches, which is also calling their mothers bitches, which is probably not that surprising coming from Donald Trump. There are fine people fighting for racial separation, and the sons of bitches are the ones activating against racial inequality.
Also, you got to love it when Trump is wrong on multiple levels. So, of course, there's the level that you laid out there. But also, Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback whom a lot of this focus and drama is centered around, doesn't have a job right now.
He's not even in the NFL.
He's a pretty good quarterback by all objective measures. The whole reason that he's a free agent is because no team will sign him because they're afraid of the backlash that's going on.
No doubt about it. And many NFL players are not happy with this. A ton of them tweeting over the weekend. New England Patriots owner Bob Kraft, who's known to be a friend of Donald Trump's, put out a statement slamming these comments. The NFL commissioner Roger Goodell's office did the exact same thing. You had Jaguars and Ravens players kneeling during the anthem in response to Trump's criticism. 20 of the New England Patriots took a knee, countless NFL players, hundreds of players total. The NFL, consider for a moment, is a totally militaristic, corporatist, and by and large right-wing haven in terms of its ownership structure. And they're more or less unifying against the comments from a Republican president. Consider what that means. Even recalcitrant elements of the Republican Party have been speaking out in favor of the players and against Donald Trump. And this is moronic nonsense in a number of ways. First is ideologically, then is Trump's hypocrisy, which is often there. As I mentioned already, the right complains about blacklists against conservatives in different industries or in Hollywood or at Google, and then they want people fired for expressing political opinions through nonviolent action. It's sort of a blacklist for anyone who kneels during the national anthem. Does anybody see the glaring hypocrisy here? Then they complain about oppressive political correctness, but again, say that you should be required to stand during the anthem because it's wrong not to and it's disrespectful. This is enforcing their own version of political correctness. And this may come as a shock to some people in our audience, Pat. You cannot be a fan of this protest method, kneeling during the anthem, but recognize that it is absolutely the type of nonviolent political speech that that the country was founded on, and recognize that the president dictating people be fired for it is absolutely atrocious.
And he also went after the NBA this weekend, too, because apparently he had nothing better else to do. And he said that usually after an NBA team wins a championship, they go to the White House, and there's this whole big ceremony and everything.
Of course.
He rescinded that invitation for the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
So, of course, you know, the Players Association is behind them. LeBron James called him a bum.
I saw that on
Twitter. It's just a bad political strategy, too, because a lot of people in the middle of the country love their sports more than they love politics. They're going to choose the Warriors and Kaepernick over Trump, I think.
For the most part, I think you're right. And Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, I don't know if you saw it, Pat, but he had an amazing 90-second comment about all this. And I mean, it just... I don't know who Trump's picking a fight with. And the argument I saw from a defender of Trump was, listen, people have been polled about whether they support kneeling during the national anthem. And something like 60 to 80% of Americans believe it's wrong to kneel during the national anthem. Thus, Trump is actually on the right side of this. You can be against kneeling during the national anthem, but still recognize that it's constitutionally protected and it is the right of whoever is choosing to do that and not to be fired for it. And I think that's where maybe Trump is misreading it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people understand that it's just a symbol, it's just a song, but to those who think that it's more valuable and important than that, I think they understand as well that this wouldn't get much of attention if he was to do it in some other way, if he was to protest when the cameras weren't rolling, when the national anthem wasn't playing. There's no way we would be talking about this right now.
And by the way, what's the point of fighting for our freedoms around the world with the military, all that stuff, if then people don't get to choose how they use that freedom however they want? And this is the president calling for the firing of employees of private businesses. That's not exactly the freedom that I thought the right wanted. And then, of course, Pat mentioned this earlier, when it comes to Trump and respect and service, Trump is framing his position here as the moral position, as the patriotic position, its duty to country and respect for our troops. Trump attacked a Gold Star family. Trump said he didn't think a former prisoner of war, Senator John McCain, was a hero because he was captured. And according to McCain, over the last 24 hours, he's never apologized to John McCain for that. Trump said that avoiding STDs through risky sexual encounters with women was his own Vietnam. And Trump avoided the draft multiple times because of bone spurs that he couldn't even remember in which foot he had them when asked about it years later. And it's often Trump who's doing the not patriotic thing when there's a flag or anthem around. Remember at a Republican debate when Donald Trump did not have his hand over his heart. It was Trump during the Pledge of Allegiance or anthem or whatever it was. Marco Rubio had his hand on his heart. Ted Cruz had his hand on his heart. Ben Carson, who usually sleeps through these things, had his hand on his heart, but not Trump. Trump doesn't know or admit to even knowing why these players are taking a knee. He claims it's disrespectful to law enforcement and the military. What about flying the Confederate flag? Isn't flying the Confederate flag as disrespectful to the actual flag of the United States as just kneeling during the anthem? And the last point I want to make on this, Trump's coming for your health care, right? Trump's coming for your health care, and he sends a dozen tweets about kneeling during NFL games. Trump's been silent on Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, we're talking about Americans in Puerto Rico who have no power, They are lacking water after getting hit with 2 hurricanes. And instead of a dozen tweets about how Trump is going to help Puerto Rico, it's a dozen tweets about athletes kneeling during the national anthem.
And remember, he made these comments when he was endorsing the Alabama Senate contender, Luther Strange, too.
Yeah.
Complete ad lib here.
Yeah. Oh, and it seems that anytime Trump comes up with these little ideas, they end up completely imploding. And we know enough about Trump's personality to assume he thinks he's right in all this. Bob Kraft, 200 players, this, that, the other person saying, yeah, Trump's just wrong about this. Trump will rationalize it and say, no. Here's why I'm actually the one who's correct. And the truth is, there are enough people in this country who side with Trump and don't understand the nuances of the First Amendment and of free speech and of censorship and of private companies being able to make the employment decisions that make sense for them, that this may actually not be something that really drags down Trump's approval rating. We'll see. It's actually, shockingly, I mentioned last week that Trump's approval rating has sort of ticked up a little bit. It's ticked up a little more, now up to 40% as of this morning in the Gallup daily tracking poll. But we will see what those numbers look like closer to the end of the week. Okay, I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. The show's on Twitter at David Pakman Show. What do you think of all this? What's really the core issue that is at play in Trump's criticism of kneeling during the national anthem? The video you just finished watching was made possible by you through the membership program. You can sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. We are viewer-supported independent media. You can use the coupon code IVoted17 for a 40% discount off of your membership.